So, Mr. Chair, we do have quorum, but we're just waiting for a few more to get logged into PrimeGov.
I'll just let you tell me when to start.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Taylor, were you able to get in?
It's telling me my browser doesn't support.
Are you using Chrome or
Yeah.
Safari if you're on an Apple device?
I was on, yeah, I'm Google Chrome.
Okay. Can we make sure that you were using the correct web address? It's okc.primegov.com/login. Mr. LaHue, were you able to get into PrimeGov?
I'm in it. I'm trying to get to where we can vote on the meeting
So it's
portion,
meetings and committees at the top,
right?
and then live meeting. And then
Okay.
under today, there should be a listing for this meeting.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor, is it still giving you that error?
I've got the login. I'm just trying to get in it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So I just want to remind all of my board members that once we get started here and staff shares the screen, that if you're working on a single device, that Zoom, of course, will take over your screen and that you'll have to press escape on your keyboard to get back to your voting buttons once those come available, okay?
Mickey, this is Alan. Is everybody else in besides Mr. Taylor? Is there anybody else we need to help?
No, everybody else is in.
All right.
All right, every password I've tried, invalid login attempt.
Would you like to voice vote today, Mr. Taylor?
I will.
All right, then we'll proceed. Okay, Mr. Chairman, you can go ahead and get started.
Thank you, Mickey. Good morning, staff, and good morning, all board members. We have a few announcements to make. Thank you for joining us for the City of Oklahoma City Video Conference Community and Neighborhood Enhancement Advisory Board meeting. As you are aware, during the state of emergency in place during the COVID-19 pandemic and in compliance with state and local stay-at-home orders, no physical location will be provided for this meeting. This meeting will instead be live streamed from remote locations. We want to remind everyone that as you have arrived in our virtual meeting, we have muted your mic. We have a few announcements to make regarding the virtual meeting. If the video conference is disconnected at any time during the meeting shall be stopped and reconvened once the audio connection is restored. If communications are unable to be restored within 30 minutes, items remaining for consideration will be continued to Monday, March 8th at 10 a.m. via teleconference. Anyone wishing to speak about an agenda item or public hearing or to speak under citizens to be heard, please call 405-297-2406 or email mark.mishu@okc.gov. Speakers will be allowed 3 minutes to comment. When you call in, staff will be muting your line. Please keep your lines on mute until you are recognized to speak. To unmute your phone, press *6. We ask all participants, except the board members, keep their lines on mute until they are recognized to speak. Board members will be allowed to ask questions or comments at any time during this meeting. Please remember that only one person can be heard at a time. If more than one person speaks, we will not hear you both. For anyone speaking today, including board members, please identify yourself when you begin to speak. The agenda and documents discussed in this meeting are located on okc.gov. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is March 1st, 2021. Can the city clerk verify our quorum?
Chairman, we have quorum.
Excellent. Appreciate everybody being here today. This meeting is beginning. First order is to approve minutes from the January 4th, 2021 meeting. This requires a vote. Would someone move to that, please?
It's been moved and seconded, Chairman.
Thank you.
Taylor,
Mr.
aye.
We will vote on that. All in favor, cast their vote.
Mr. McKnight, would you vote electronically, please?
Well, it all went blank.
Would you like to voice vote, Chairman?
Yes, I vote aye.
The motion passed, Chairman.
Thank you. Next item 3, items for consideration. A, street resurfacing project, status update.
Good morning. This is Mike Clark. Thank you again for your participation in the Community and Neighborhood Enhancement Advisory Board. We hope you and your families have continued to stay safe and you are not negatively impacted by the February snow event. For the major presentations in today's meeting, Brock Minor will offer 3 resurfacing budget revisions for your consideration. Erica Jones and Kyle Morris from CEC will provide project updates on the Paseo Walker Street Enhancement projects and the Lake Hefner Trail project, respectively. We plan to conclude with a recap of some of the highlights from the 2020 annual report. If you have questions or comments during the meeting, please stop us and we will gladly respond. With that, I will introduce Brock to discuss item 3A, resurfacing, with you.
Good morning, everyone. And we'll start, I guess, with the category allocation map. It's back a couple slides. There we go. After our distribution of all the excess collections, it shows the status of all the allocations. As you see, the resurfacing, sidewalks and trails are in the 90%, and street enhancements at 76%, and bike infrastructure is at 69%. And like always, if y'all have any questions, just stop me, or else I'll just keep talking really fast. But that brings us to item 3A1, which is our status update. And we start with the status map, and this shows all the projects, located within the city. And as you can tell, the green complete is starting to kind of overtake the map. We do have some projects under construction in red, and there's only a few blue projects, still in design. And that brings us to item 3A2, which actually 3A2, 3 and 4 are all budget revisions. And we'll start with item 3A2, which is a arterial resurfacing project. It's Walker Avenue from Robert S. Kerr to Northwest 10th Street. Like every project, as we get into it, we start to work with adjacent property owners. One of the major property owners of this area is the St. Anthony's Hospital right there on the corner of Northwest 9th and Walker Avenue. And as we sat down with them to discuss everything and get the project schedule going, they really had great concerns on Northwest 9th Street in front of the hospital. The road is, excuse me, in poor condition. And so they would really like to see that addressed with this project. And that's what we would like to do. We would like to have the opportunity to include that section of Northwest 9th in front of St. Anthony's Hospital as a part of this Walker project. And therefore, I'm asking for an increase of $450,000 to be approved to add that section of Northwest 9th.
Brock, this is Tony Carfang from Ward 2. I saw that the idea here is to also add a little bit of resurfacing between Walker and Dewey. Is that correct?
Walker and Dewey. And that is that section. Yes, that's correct. I mean, that's part of, is that part of the 9th Street or Walker, Robert S. Kerr to Northwest 10th? Where is Dewey located within there?
I think I saw in the packet that there was just a little segment along 9th Street between Walker and Dewey. So it'd just be, I think, a half block or a block added to that.
I think you are correct. Yes, that's part of what we're trying to include.
Okay. Would there be an opportunity to also go east from Walker towards Hudson? The road there on 9th is actually pretty rough.
We can evaluate that. We can evaluate that and see if that's something you'd like to see presented on the next meeting. We can try to get an estimate together and put that a part of additional budget revision.
That would be great. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Actually, I think it's even rougher between Hudson and Harvey. So if we could potentially go all the way to Harvey, that'd be fantastic.
Okay, yeah, no, we'll look into that.
I believe item 2 needs a vote. Is that correct, Brock?
Yes, please.
It's been moved and seconded. All vote that have the ability to on their device. Michael,
Taylor, I.
very good. That passes. Next is 3A3.
Item 3A3 is another arterial resurfacing project, and it's on Portland Avenue from Northwest 50th to Northwest 63rd. This project's unique in the fact that Portland has several projects as a part of it. It really has projects that stretch from Reno all the way to 63rd. Reno to 10th and 10th to 23rd are bond street enhancement projects. And then one of our sales tax street enhancement projects was 23rd to 36. And then the sales tax has done the resurfacing on 36 to 50th on Portland. And then now we're currently working on Northwest 50th to 63rd. So really, you know, throughout a long stretch of Portland, the last little stretch is the part that goes north from 63rd and really ties into the lake. Stars and Stripes Park is there. And so that area is also in poor condition. And we just feel like with everything going on along that kind of corridor, we would really like to include 63rd to Lakeshore Avenue as a part of this project. And therefore I'm asking for a $450,000 increase to include, you know, that stretch of Portland from 63rd to Lakeshore Drive. I think we might need to move up a couple slides. There we go.
Mr. Chair, this will need a motion.
It has been moved and seconded. All in favor, well, please vote on your device. Michael Taylor,
Taylor, I.
very good. That passes. Next is item 3A4.
And this will be our last budget revision. This one is actually a residential resurfacing. It's the southwest quarter of the square mile that encompasses Santa Fe, High, Southeast 29th, and Southeast 15th. This project has been fairly challenging. We've had a lot of full depth resurfacing go on in that project, but our focus on this one is Southeast 25th. Because it's the southwest quarter, we really only get that half mile of Southeast 25th, and you know, from Santa Fe to Byers. And so because Southeast 25th is a bike lane, we would like to continue on Southeast 25th and go east that other half mile and get us all the way to High Street. So that's kind of, it's a bad area and it is a bike lane. And so we would definitely like to get that resurfaced. And so that's why I'm asking for an increase of $320,000 to include Southeast 25th Byers to High as a part of this project. And this also will need a vote.
It's been moved and seconded. Please cast your vote.
Taylor, I.
Thank you. That also passes. Are there any other questions for Brock on street resurfacing projects?
Just one, Tony Carfang from Ward 2 again. So something I've noticed around town, and not necessarily on the new resurfaced roads, but just on some of the older roads, I've noticed that when induction sensors get put in the roads, in many cases, the induction sensors go well into the crosswalk in the pedestrian area, which encourages cars to go well beyond the stop line where they're supposed to stop. So I just want to make sure with all the resurfacing projects, when induction sensors go in, that they do reinforce the idea of cars stopping behind the stop bar and not encroaching on the crosswalk.
I think it's a good question. With all of our resurfacing projects, when we go through the intersection, or even if we don't go through the intersection, we're trying to turn all of our intersections into radar, which the radar will be mounted on the pole. And so it detects it that way. And so our hope is to not ever have to do any more of the loop wires like you talk about in the road. One, we don't like to cut into our new pavement. And two, we think that the radar is just a more recent technology. And so every opportunity that we get, the direction is to go to radar. And so all of the sales tax projects that have been resurfaced, we at minimum cover at least one or two of the radars. But if we go through the intersection and the money is there, we try to do all four, directions of travel, and we turn all of that into radar. And so there's no cutting into the pavement with the induction sensors.
Perfect, thanks. And even better, radar has a better job of detecting cyclists too.
Absolutely.
Brock, this is Hal McKnight. I have a question for you. After our horrific blizzard, there are a lot of potholes in Oklahoma City, and citizens are certainly encouraged to call in and identify a pothole. On these streets that we've resurfaced with our funds, if there are potholes there, is it up to you guys with this funding to refix those potholes, refill?
We'll definitely look into that. If we think that it was, solely the weather's fault and not the construction of the project, we probably, we can still look into these funds and try to see if they're there and fix those potholes with that. If we think it's, construction issue that came about, then obviously we'll have the contractor address those. But yes, absolutely, call into the action center, let them know where these potholes are. We'll try to get to them as fast as possible. Obviously, there's a lot going on right now with the potholes, and Public Works and Utility Department, we didn't get a snow day. And so we're definitely trying to address all those. And yes, absolutely, with these projects, we can look for this funding to fix any of that stuff.
Mr. Chairman, this is Eric Winger, the Director of Public Works. To clarify, and Brock is correct. If a resident or if someone sees a pothole on a city street, we encourage them to call that into the Action Center, 297-2535, or they can use the city's online app that you can download from either iPhone or an Android device that allows you to do that with your mobile device. But our city crews will be making those repairs to the potholes. And I think, as Brock also mentioned, only if it's a construction issue or a construction failure will we actually have the contractor make that repair. That happens from time to time, but all the potholes will be filled with our city crews just as quickly as possible. And we appreciate the patience as we kind of work after the winter storm. Thank you.
Very good. Next item would be 3B, Street Enhancements Projects.
Good morning. This is Lakeisha Dunbar, Transportation Program Planner with the Planning Department, and I'll be reviewing the status of projects for the next few items, starting with the street enhancement projects. If you could go to the next slide, please. I will be discussing our 11 funded projects, not in a particular order that they're listed here. Basically, I'll be discussing the status based on how far they progressed. And starting with the Northwest 10th and Vermont project, the signals and sidewalk are complete, and they are working on the check punch list items. And there's one other item that needs to be completed, which is the gate. We're working with the apartments on the south side there and have agreed to do a gate opening for pedestrians. And so that is one of the last items to be completed for this project. The Northwest 39th Street project, they are working on the sidewalk, and they started working on sidewalk, and particularly at the location of Northwest 40th and Barnes. The Meridian Avenue project is in a 30% design review. The 10th Street project is also in 30% plans and design review. The Portland Avenue project traffic studies are complete for considerations of signals, and development of the preliminary 60% plans are currently in design. They are currently reviewing areas needed for right-of-way acquisition and reviewing proposed changes for commercial frontage in order to coordinate with property owners. The Auto Alley project, the consultant contract was approved on February 8th, and stakeholder participated in an opinion survey that closed on February 19th. They are planning to hold the next meeting in March to discuss the survey outcomes and develop next steps. The Plaza area project preliminary report has been received and it is currently under review. The Stockyards area project and the Northeast 23rd Street projects are currently on hold as we're looking to coordinate with the area plan that's being done for the Stockyards area, and to also coordinate with potential opportunities for funding for the Northeast 23rd Street project. And that is all I have on the status of the street enhancement projects. Are there any questions before I turn it over to Erica Jones with CEC? She will give us a presentation on the status of the Paseo and Walker projects. So are there any questions at this time on the street enhancement projects?
I had one question, Lakeisha. So I know we talked about this, but if you could just remind me, what are the other funding opportunities on the Northeast 23rd project?
Right now, we know that there is the Clara Looper corridor funding that has been identified as part of the MAPS 4. And then we're just trying to coordinate. That's all we have identified as of yet that as potential funding. And then of course, we're also looking at potentially giving some additional funds of the excess funds that the sales tax excess allocations that's been collected. We're still working through the list of funding and the projects and the needs there. And so there may be opportunity to provide additional funds from the excess collections.
Okay, great. That was my second question. I know we had allocated some of the excess collections, additional dollars that gone into street enhancements. So it sounds like you all are working through basically what the list is and what that will look like. So is that something that you would bring to us at some point in the future then?
Yes, definitely. We plan to bring it relatively soon. I think we were waiting on a couple of other projects. There's one project that we're looking at bringing forward as a new project. And we were working through getting some cost estimates for that particular project. And so we hope to be able to bring to you all soon some recommendations on how to allocate the remaining excess funds.
Okay, perfect. That was my next question, and you already answered it. I was going to ask if there were any new projects that you guys were considering. So look forward to seeing that. Thank you for the update.
Okay, thank you.
Then Lakeisha, this is Tony Carfing again. Just for my understanding on how funding structures work, do federal level highway safety improvement program funds or transportation alternative funds end up directly to Oklahoma City or through ACOG or through ODOT in some way?
So additional federal funds are allocated through ACOG. They manage a couple of programs throughout the year. So as you mentioned, the TAP, the Transportation Alternative Programs, which is typically for bicycle and pedestrian type facilities. And then they also have the STBG, Surface Transportation, STB Block Grant, urbanized area funds that they do a call for projects annually. And it's a competitive process where we apply, and we have applied for some projects to receive some funding through that. And that's usually done in the fall. Most recently, we did receive, as of January, 3 projects related to that. We were able to receive funding for one bike project And I'm sorry, it's escaping my mind right now which one that is.
I think that was around Sooner and 59th.
Well, 59th Street, we did receive last year.
Okay.
With the last call, we did receive federal funding for 59th Street. And this year, I believe we selected the a Classen project to receive funding for that. And we can bring you more information on that in the future. But yes, there were 2 road projects, a bridge project, a street enhancement project, well, not street enhancement, but an intersection improvement project and a bike project that just recently received funding through the SDBG UZA process. And again, those funds are allocated through ACOG, and it's an application competitive process.
Okay, I appreciate the details.
Thank you.
This is Jason Johnston. Lakeisha, Stockyards area has been on our radar from the beginning, and it has been basically waiting on them. Do we have any kind of timeline on when their actions will actually be able to get us some input into what we're going to be doing?
I do not have a timeline for you, but I will definitely bring something more detailed at our next meeting.
Thank you. It's just,
Or before
it's
then.
just been out there, out there for a long time. Thank you, Lakeisha.
Yes, I understand. Thank you for the request. And we'll, if not before our next meeting, definitely at our next meeting, I'll have a definitive timeline for you.
Thank you very much.
Are there any other questions regarding our street enhancement project update status? Hearing none, at this time, I'll turn it over to Erica Jones, who is with the CEC consulting firm, and she will give you a presentation on the Paseo and Walker projects.
Good morning. I'm Erica Jones. I'm with CEC. And as Lakeisha said, I'm going to give you kind of a project update on the street enhancement projects for the Paseo district and also Walker Avenue. So we can go to the next slide. We did conduct a community meeting on October 3rd of 2019, and we met with over 30 different stakeholders. We discussed the project scope and also got quite a bit of input from the stakeholders at that meeting. So talked about some of their ideas and also concerns that they had for both projects. Since then, we have been conducting regular project meetings with the stakeholders. COVID's put a little bit of a hitch on that, but we have done some in-person meetings, several virtual meetings, and then we have done a few in-field meetings, kind of walking the project and talking about design ideas that way as well. And then if you'll click next slide. So the EPA did do a study that was greening America's communities, and both Paseo and Walker were in that report, looking at some of the green infrastructure that could be implemented on both projects. So we have been investigating the feasibility of implementing rain gardens as part of our design on both Paseo and Walker. And then if we'll go to the next slide. So just to give you kind of an overview of what the rain gardens are and how they will function. So they do help reduce and filter stormwater runoff. And the rendering there on the right kind of shows the water comes into the rain gardens, filters through all the different media and plantings that are in that rain garden, and helps to remove some of the contaminants that is in the storm water. And it does empty into the existing storm sewer system or slowly enters back onto the roadway. This helps with some of the flooding conditions that Paseo and Walker are currently experiencing, especially at some of the key intersections that they have. And if you'll click again, we also have done some drainage analysis for the existing drainage patterns. So Paseo and Walker, they are shaped kind of like a big bowl. All of the water is draining down to one central location, or the bottom of the bowl, so to speak. So the water is heading towards 28th and Walker, and also 29th and Walker. So we are recommending rain gardens at both of those intersections. And if we'll go to the next slide, we do have put together some renderings for these intersections. So this intersection is at 29th and Walker, looking from the west side of the intersection. So this is looking at implementing rain gardens at all four corners of the intersection to help with some of that flooding that's happening currently, and then also providing pedestrian access to the intersection, and then also ADA compliant sidewalks. And then the next rendering is at 28th Street or Paseo Drive and the intersection at Walker. And again, inputting rain gardens at all four all four corners of the intersection to help with flooding. And then also giving kind of a unique design to this intersection, with it being the gateway into Paseo, but also staying true to the existing aesthetic that Paseo already has established. And then if we'll go to the next slide. So some other project improvements for both of these projects, looking at the pedestrian ADA access, especially access to some of these buildings and businesses along Paseo Drive that don't currently have ADA access to those buildings. And then also looking at increasing the amount of parking for both projects. Parking is very limited, especially when the Paseo holds the different events that they have within the district. And so our conceptual design is looking to add about 30 parking spaces. And then also looking at focused pavement repairs. There are some sections of both projects where the asphalt needs to be completely replaced. So talking about full depth reconstruction repairs. But for the most part, we are looking at a mill and overlay for both projects to give a very cohesive feel to the projects and also increase the pavement life cycle. We are also looking at the landscaping. There is quite a bit of existing landscape in the Paseo, so keeping true to that, revamping some of it, adding some additional landscaping. And our plant palette is very similar to what the Paseo already has, incorporating some of the same plants and maybe adding in a few new ones. And then we do have an arborist on our team who has looked at Walker and both Paseo at the trees in those projects. And then as far as the lighting, we are looking to revamp the lighting. There's several light fixtures throughout Paseo and Walker that are currently not functioning, and then also making sure that the lighting is consistent throughout both projects. And we have put together some renderings, and that's on the next slide, showing some of these project improvements. So the existing pictures are there on the left with the renderings on the right. So implementing those project improvements, like I mentioned, the ADA access, additional parking spaces, revamping some of the existing landscaping and upgrading the lighting, and then of course resurfacing. And then if we can go to the next slide, we have some additional renderings. The ones there at the top are at 30th and Paseo, the intersection there. And currently there's no actual ramps giving pedestrian access to this intersection. So the rendering there on the right shows that pedestrian access. And then the pictures there on the bottom are showing along Paseo Drive. So including some additional parking. And then also you can see the resurfacing that's needed. And so resurfacing through Paseo Drive to give better driving surface. And then next, so what are the next steps for Paseo and Walker? So as we move towards construction, we will be taking into consideration working around the Paseo Arts Festival and also the First Friday events that the Paseo holds each month. And then we will be looking to construct both of these, the two design projects, as one construction project. And we will continue our coordination with the Northwest 23rd Street Bond project that intersects with Walker Avenue. And we are currently preparing the preliminary engineering report, and we hope to share that with you guys at your next meeting. So with that, I'll just thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, I'd love to answer them.
Erica, this is Al McKnight. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
On your rain gardens, are you using a French drain type situation to use the hydrology of moving the water, or is it an open drain?
Well, it's kind of like a dome type drain where basically the water will build up and then it eventually starts spilling into the storm sewer system.
I see. Okay. In ice conditions, how do you keep it open? What's the plan in keeping it together when it would start off as a rain and then start freezing?
Right. So how that will happen is, like I said, the domed, kind of the dome drain is elevated. So the water would have to build up. And of course, as it freezes, it's probably going to freeze in the rain garden. And I don't know that there's really much we can do in order to keep it, fluid. But as far as the drain, as long as the water is below it, it should not freeze up, and the water should make its way in there as it continues to melt.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Erica, this is Tony Carfang, also from Ward 2. I really appreciate your work on this project. I can tell you pushing my daughter in a stroller around has been a challenge, to say the least, and then biking there to then get up onto a sidewalk to access the bike racks has been a challenge. So I'm really looking forward to the ADA improvements.
Yes.
As far as the parking goes, I know on 39th Street, we'll be going with a parking design of reverse angle parking. So backing into the spot, and that allows for better driver visibility of oncoming traffic or cyclists as they pull out afterwards. Is that something that you considered here?
So we're very conceptual right now. We've kind of laid out some parking concepts for the city and also for the stakeholders. But that is definitely something that we can look into and examine, especially if it can give better visibility for the bicyclists and also pedestrians. We can definitely look.
Okay, great. I would definitely appreciate that. That's always an interesting challenge, biking through the Paseo when cars are trying to back out without visibility. So
oh, yes.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions for Erica? Thank you, Erica. We appreciate the presentation.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, now we'll move on to item 3C1, sidewalk projects. Actually, before we move on to sidewalk project status, I did get some updates on the Stockyards area question that we had by Mr. Johnston. I have that either late spring or the end of the fiscal year, the area plan study will be completed. Then it will need to be coordinated with the Planning Commission and Council for their review. And then as far as the actual street enhancement project, we actually will be having our first community meeting this Thursday. And that is scheduled for the street enhancement project. So there's a status for you on that project.
Thank you. It's good to know we have kind of a beginning of the end date. So thanks, Lakeisha, as always. You do a wonderful presentation.
Thank you. And hopefully we'll have more of a comprehensive timeline for you coming forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other questions regarding our street enhancement projects, we will move on to item 3C1, sidewalk project status. Next slide. I don't have any images for you today. And so just talking points here. Our parks area, we had 6 parks areas for sidewalks, and 5 out of the 6 are complete. The one that is still under construction is the E.W. Perry Park Area project. For the PPAs, the pedestrian priority areas, we had 8 of those locations, and 2 are still under construction at this time. The remaining 6 are complete. The Windsor number 2 area and the Penn at 44th Street area are the 2 areas that are still under construction for the PPA areas. For our school areas, we had 11 projects, and two projects are still under construction, and that is the Mustang Valley and the South Lake Elementary School areas that are still under construction at this time. For the transit areas, those were broken up into 2 phases. The phase number 1 is complete, and phase 2 is about 94% complete. And then the downtown area sidewalks is beginning construction, and the first phase is under construction. Contractors are having to coordinate with property owners, do a little extra coordination with property owners. And because it is in the downtown area, we will also have to work on some reviews by the district, some district reviews for some of the sidewalk areas in the downtown areas. Are there any questions regarding our sidewalk projects?
Lakeisha, good morning. This is Hal McKnight. I have a quick question for you. MAPS 3 has built a total of 55 miles of sidewalks, and our CANIV group has built, to my records, so far 84 miles of sidewalks. Do you know approximately how many more miles of sidewalks will be built with our funding?
I don't know that number offhand, but I definitely will get back to you. And so when you say how many more miles, I'm sorry, can you repeat? I heard you say 55 miles was constructed with MAPS 3 and
Yes.
84 miles was constructed. And you say, is that with the sales tax?
Yes, with the sales tax extension, better streets, safer city monies. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'll check those numbers. And you want to know how many more miles will be constructed. And we also have some sidewalk projects that are funded by bond. So are you meaning just total funded projects or any particular funded projects?
That would be great. I know that no sidewalks basically had been built in Oklahoma City since the 60s, 1960s. And so I know MAPS 3 was, we worked on putting a map together to see exactly what sidewalks we had in Oklahoma City. We're not a whole lot. Now we're looking at a tremendous amount of sidewalks that have been built and that are being used. And I was just curious of the total numbers of where we stand present day and with the future funding from this. And of course, MAPS 4, I think, has $55 million to be earmarked towards sidewalks. So we've become a much more walkable city. We didn't have any way to go in the down direction, but we've certainly made a lot of progress and greatly appreciate everyone's work to be where we are today and moving forward.
Okay. Yes, we will get those numbers to you as soon as possible. We can have them broken down by funding source and other future opportunities.
Thank you, Lakeisha.
Thank you, Mr. McKnight. Are there any other questions regarding our sidewalk status? Okay, hearing none, we'll go ahead and move on to item 3D1, bicycle facilities. You can go to the next slide. And again, I don't have any wonderful images to show you today, but I will start with our Main Street project, general purging project. Of course, this project, we broke it up into 3 phases, and essentially phase 1 being general purging from May to Penn. That portion is complete, and they're going through the punch list items as we speak. Phase 2 is essentially from Western to Lee, and that project is probably about 95% complete. They've already begun restriping, done the striping for that portion of the project. And phase 3 is on Main Street from Penn to Western. And that project portion, we are coordinating. We are working, the design is about 60% complete, and we are working to do some public engagement and coordination there as it relates to parking considerations for that portion of the project. Lottie Street project is probably about 50% designed, and that one also we were looking to do some public engagement and identify coordination for parking considerations for that project also. The Villa North and the Grandin Independence projects, consultants they're in the consultant selection and negotiation process and expected to have contracts executed by mid-April for both of those projects. And just a reminder, those 2 projects are considered match funded projects for the BRT. So they're having to go through a different phase, a different process for design and construction in order to meet the FTA, the Federal Transit Authority's regulations for being a match for the BRT. The Village Central project is in design, and that one we're also needing to coordinate with the Stockyards project because the project does go down through the Stockyards area. The Arterial project has been sent to the contractor, and they were waiting for warmer temperatures to begin the striping on that portion of the project. The Southeast 25th Street project is on hold until funding is determined, but the design is near completion and is currently going through the review process. This project is proposed for lane reductions, and so we'll need to do some coordination with council before we continue with that project. And then the Linwood project is on hold until we identify additional funding for it. So some of these projects still need additional funding allocations. We just haven't brought them back to you all yet for the to make a request. We're just still working through the estimates and a little bit more on the design so that we can confirm how much more funding may need to be allocated for some of these projects. The Wilshire project, we're working on the alignment for that project, and the Southeast 59th Street project is in the 30% review process and will be ready to submit to ODOT once the council member approves the lane reduction. So that one too is under review. We're proposing a lane reduction, and so we'll need to have council member review on that one. That is one of the projects that Mr. Carfang may have referenced earlier. It too received some federal funding, and so it's going through an extra process for design and review. And that is the status update for all of our bicycle projects. Are there any questions at this time on our bike projects?
Thanks, Lakeisha. I've got two. First, in particular, with regard to General Pershing, you mentioned May to Penn is complete. And there from May westbound, bike traffic does not have a bike lane, at least for a couple of blocks. It may not pick up until Villa. I can't quite recall. I was a little bit curious about that design of not putting in a bike lane immediately connected to May. It may not be a big safety concern, but would there be a possibility of at least signage on the trail to point trail users that it is in fact a good bike connection to downtown?
Yes, we have put on hold. We are currently kind of having a stationary process of wayfinding plans for our bike and trail projects. And so, yes, we do have plans to do better signage as it relates to connecting our on-street facilities to our trail projects. And that is definitely one location that we've looked at, but that has been put on hold for now just due to staff timing and capacity to complete the wayfinding signage plan. But yes, there are plans to have some signage to connect that particular on-street project to the trail.
Great, I'm happy to hear that, thanks. The other question is a little bit more esoteric and more related to some of my state and federal work. So I have a good understanding of how much funding we have in Oklahoma City through bonds, through sales tax, et cetera. But I'm having difficulty getting total numbers that includes how much came in through matching of the BRT or how much came in through the STBG, et cetera. Would that be easy data for you to be able to pull, just the amount of funding for each project and source?
Yes, I have that information. I can provide it to you.
Okay, that would be super helpful for some meetings I have on Wednesday.
Okay, and so just for clarification, you'd like to know what basically the listing of our total funding allocations regardless of the funding source? Basically, you wanna
Actually,
know-
I am looking for a breakdown of how much for each project is sales tax, how much is bond, how much is matching through various programs. And if you could go to the level of detail of TAP versus surface transportation block grants, et cetera, that'd be really helpful.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'll get you something. I have it broken down by category, but maybe not like each project and each, like
Okay.
if one project has multiple sources, I can get it to you.
I think overall percentages from each source would be helpful too, if that's easier.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right, thank you. Are there any other questions regarding our regarding our bike project status? Okay, I think hearing none, our next item is item 3E2 trails. And I believe I'll be doing that update status also.
It's up to you, Lakeisha. I can run through a quick, brief update of all the status of the projects if you'd like.
Go ahead, Brock. I'll hand it over to you.
Terrific. Yeah, that brings us to item 3E2 trails and our status map. On the next slide, we'll kind of go over everything. As you know, the Burt Cooper Trail is complete. The Overholster Trail is complete. The Overholster to Lake Hefner Trail is complete. We have almost complete. We're working on punch list items is the South Oklahoma River Trail and the North Oklahoma River Trail. We're actually working with a contractor to get a PO and a work order out to them to get started. Our Katy Trail is also under construction. And then our in design, of course, is Deep Fork. And then the Lake Hefner Trail is also in design. And that's actually what we had a brief overview for y'all. So if there's no questions on the status, I will turn it over to Kyle Morris with CEC, and he'll kind of go over the design of our Lake Hefner Trail.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank everybody for having me here today. So this is a project I'm pretty excited about getting a chance to work on. So I'd like to thank everybody for the opportunity. Here on the slide, let's run through a few things. The proposed trail length is about 1.13 miles long with a total budget of $1.4 million. There are a number of things that this trail will do once it's constructed. Chiefly will be improved connectivity for cyclists in the area that are to the north and northwest of Lake Hefner. For a couple of reasons. One, as I'm sure many of you are aware, the dam here at Lake Hefner is very deep. It's about 72 feet above the elevation of Lake Hefner. So if somebody were to be living near Bluff Creek Park and wanted to get south or south and west, the safest way to do that right now, presently, would be to travel east on the trail on the north side of Hefner Road, all the way to Portland, and then get on the trail and ride the dam all the way down to Britton Road. That's an additional 3 miles of travel and 72 feet vertical up and down to make that connection. The trail proposed here, you can see here in red on the northwest corner of Lake Hefner, will make that connection much simpler, and will also connect to future proposed Tier 1 facility on Meridian Avenue, which is just on the east side of Bluff Creek. And there's also a proposed future trail on Hefner Road between Ann Arbor and MacArthur. So this trail here will make a much better connection and a safer route for anybody who's wanting to commute through the area, in particular because MacArthur Boulevard is not a good alternative, heavily traveled with a lot of vertical curves in it, which could make it a little dangerous to be on a bicycle. Could you go to the next slide, please? So here's kind of a general overview of the alignment of the trail. You can kind of, this is a preliminary alignment. You can see there's a jog there on the left half of the picture, and north is to the right, by the way. This is extending from Britton Road to Hefner Road. We are going to be paralleling an existing 42-inch transmission line water line. So a lot of this project's alignment is dictated by that on the southern half. And to the east, we're able to get further separation from this water line, and we'll be traveling between a overhead transmission line and an overhead electrical distribution line. Next slide, please. Here on the south side of the trail, it picks up where the Burt Cooper Trail leaves off. I used to ride this trail about twice a week. It's one of my favorite trails to ride. But I always thought it was a little unusual there on the, you can see on the left picture here where the trail kind of dead ends. And most cyclists are either forced to then ride up the steep slope of the roadway up to Lakeshore Drive to ride around the dam, or more frequently, like I did, typically people just ride on the road and skip this lower section of the trail. But this will be a logical connection that will be an extension of that lower portion of the trail. You can kind of see here in the right frame, that's what you'd be looking at if you were ending at the crosswalk, the crossing there on the south side of Britton Road. So this will be a much better connection. Next slide, please. A little further on, this is kind of the venue you'll be seeing as you go through the trail. The trail will be installed actually in the same location where an existing hall access road is. So it'll be, pretty vista. You can see the dam on the right and tree line on the left. Next slide, please. But further along, before the bend in the trail, you can see it opens up a little bit and be kind of a nice open venue. You can see the power lines on the left and the dam on the right. Be a nice thing to ride once it's completed. Next slide, please. Yeah, further on after the bend of the dam, you can kind of, this is taken where the trail will be installed. We're going to be bisecting the existing it will be in the middle between the distribution power poles and the transmission lines. Next slide, please. And that previous picture is pretty consistent for the rest of the trail up until the connection point at Hefner Road. You can see here on the top picture will be kind of where the trail is going to be going on its way to the existing signal at Ann Arbor, and cyclists and pedestrians can cross at this crosswalk here to get to the north side of Hefner and into Bluff Creek Park and elsewhere. Next slide, please. So in summary, there will be a handful of challenges for this project. One of them will be OWRB permitting. I don't expect this to be a major hurdle, but still, anytime you are building something behind a dam, you have to coordinate with OWRB. Avoiding the existing 42-inch water line will be another consideration. Drainage will be a challenge given how flat it is behind the dam. We'll make sure we need to provide additional future access to maintenance crews. Utilities division has also stockpiled soil back here in the past. So that's something we're giving consideration to during the design process. Presently, and this is somewhat in flux, the construction estimate is around $870,000, and this should be well within budget. I'd like to thank everybody for having me here today. Are there any questions?
Yes, Kyle, this is Hal McKnight. Certainly appreciate your work on all of this. This trail will be a multi-use trail, which would include for cyclists, walkers, and runners. A lot of people use that area anyway because it's a very nice greenway. Have you had any communication with the Water Utility Trust concerning the dam road, which is in pretty bad shape? It's very difficult to ride that, especially after was out recently after this last blizzard. It's got a lot of cracks that run perpendicular to the flow of traffic. Do you know anything? Have you talked with them? Did you need to get their approval on this?
Well, to answer your first question, we have been coordinating with Aqua and the Utilities Division for the trail behind the dam. That was one of the first things we did. Brock, I believe, has a little more information on the dam road itself.
We're definitely working with the utility department to discuss that road and everything, I can gather some information and bring that back to you if you need.
That would be great. I know that we used our funds to resurface the Burt Cooper trails, excluding the dam. And to my understanding, any reconstruction of the dam road is basically in the in the corner of the Water Utility Trust, correct?
Correct. Yes, that's owned by the utility department.
Very good. Well, there are so many people we have found in the last year that are using all of our multi-use trails, and any additional trails, especially around the Lake Hefner area, will be heavily used and greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
Well, if there's no other questions, then we'll go into item 3F1, the implementation plan, and I'll turn it over to Mike Clark.
The March 2021 implementation plan update includes budget revisions in 2 arterial resurfacing projects and 1 residential resurfacing project. The total program budget increase is $1,120,000. If you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them. Otherwise, I would ask that you receive the update and recommend adoption of the updated plan to City Council.
Please cast your votes. Michael? Michael Taylor, are you still with us?
It doesn't look like he's on, Chairman, so we'll mark him as absent.
All right. Thank you. That passes. Next item is 4A.
Good morning. This is Lori Hurd from the Budget Office. Better Street, Safer City revenues are at $262 million, which is a $170,000 increase from last month due to interest accrued. Total allocations increased by $2.8 million and total expenditures increased by $4.5 million. And with that, I would be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. This also requires a vote. It's been moved and seconded.
Mr. Dixon, are you able to vote? You're muted, sir. Oh, there it goes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, did you not see it?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. That also passes. Next item is 4B.
We are pleased to present to you the 2020 annual report for the Community and Neighborhood Enhancement Program. I've included several pages from the report as presentation slides to be discussed, but please know we can review anything that you would like. I wish to start by acknowledging our staff for providing this information and Shannon Cox for assembling it into an easy to understand format. The first slide shows the total revenue collected at $261 million, the same amount finance projected during the board's excess collections distribution process. You also see where allocations increased significantly from calendar year 2018 to 2019, and although they tapered off slightly, they continued on a strong pace through 2020. The next slide describes work accomplished in the resurfacing category. You all are accustomed to approving projects in their aggregate form. Hopefully, it is interesting to learn that over 361,000 tons of asphalt have been used on the streets resurfaced in the program to date. Many times, folks will not immediately identify all of the work included in a resurfacing project, and it can be surprising that our completed projects have constructed almost 195,000 linear feet of curb and gutter and over 1,800 ADA compliant ramps. They have also added signals, signs, and crossings at 115 intersections. The following slide addresses the intent behind the planning for our sidewalk projects, and it demonstrates that sidewalks have been constructed to connect to 22 schools, 16 parks, and 58 bus stops. My final quantitative slide tallies the work completed in 2020. 119 miles of roadway resurfaced, 21 miles of sidewalks built, 10 miles of trails updated, and 4 miles of bike lanes constructed. I moved the last slide out of order because of the significance of the picture. Mr. McKnight once asked Brock if citizens were happy with their sidewalks. The truth is that people's passion for sidewalks, both for and against, makes them one of the more difficult things we build. If you remember from several months ago, we had a neighborhood request a sidewalk connection to a crosswalk at a school. Upon finishing that sidewalk, we received a series of photographs with the residents expressing their gratitude for the completed work. We wanted to include the picture to make 3 points. We appreciate the citizens of Oklahoma City investing in our community with the Better Streets, Safer City program. We are proud of the work our staff has completed, and we are incredibly grateful to the board for the commitment each of you has made in supporting us and in serving the community. I will try to answer any questions you have. If there are none, I would ask that you receive the report and recommend the council do the same.
Thank you very much, Michael. I think that picture just says a whole lot. We have a lot of citizens that are using our sidewalks and our trail systems around Oklahoma City, and definitely a strong statement of quality of life, both mental and physical health. Certainly helps me a lot. Any other questions for Michael? Thank you. This also requires a vote. It's been moved and seconded.
Mr. Noble, are you able to vote?
No, it didn't come up.
All right, how would you like to vote today? Perfect.
Very good. That item passes. I think that's incredible. Next item is 5, Director's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Eric Winger, Public Works Director. We want to appreciate your time again this morning. I know that staff put a lot of preparation into getting information to you, and I believe this is what can be expected in the meetings to come this year. There's a number of additional street enhancement reports. There's additional bike lane facility reports that they're looking forward to presenting as we work through that list of projects. We are starting to forecast that we may not have material for each month coming forward. So it's likely that we're going to have meetings every other month. I mean, we'll keep you and the board advised and plan those accordingly. We want to make sure that we're taking best use of your time and appreciate each of you and what you do for us. 2021 is also going to be a continued heavy construction year as we work towards completing projects and doing new projects. And so you're going to continue to see a lot of those reports coming forward as well. And with that, I'm not sure if Jeff Butler, Planning Director, has anything that he'd like to add. But again, we can answer any questions you might have today.
I'm good, thank you. Just look forward to another year and seeing these projects start to, some of these projects that we haven't really seen yet, such as the bike facilities and the streetscapes come online. That'll be exciting.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Jeff? For Eric? Thank you, gentlemen. Next would be comments from the board. 6A.
Sure, I've got some as usual. So Tony Carfang, Ward 2. At the moment, 23rd Street between Classen and Penn is down to 2 lanes to support some construction. And I just want to say how magnificent that is. Going from OCU down to the Plaza District or Gatewood, being able to cross the street while only having to focus on 2 lanes of motor vehicles has felt luxurious and convenient and safe. And it seems like motor traffic has adapted to it and figured out manageable level of service as well. So just want to point out that 2 lanes on 23rd seems to be going pretty well. The other comment I have, I saw that there are some concepts for the intersection redesign at 10th and Penn and Virginia. I had reached out to, I'm blanking of the name of the person in charge of that project, but I had some questions about the designs and was wondering if I might be able to get a copy of the analysis, traffic analysis and modeling, or the report that came out of those designs.
Anthony, this is Eric Quinger. We'd be happy to provide you with that information. It is a project that's underway and it's currently at the preliminary design phase. So there is a video that is online on okc.gov that we're encouraging stakeholders and patrons in the area to review. We did get a comment from Neighborhood Alliance last week. So Georgie Rasco also is looking to do some additional reaching out of neighborhoods that are in the area. So we've extended the comment period a couple of extra weeks. But yeah, if you will, we'll make sure that after the meeting, we can send you the remainder of that report, at least in its draft, if you'd like to take a look at that.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And I'm actually pretty excited about both designs that I saw in the video.
Thank you.
Any other comments from our board? This is Hal McKnight. I would just like to say that in the last year, we have noticed so many citizens using our multi-use trails and our sidewalks. No one ever had any idea how very useful they would be. And the future, of course, is unknown, but Wall Street Journal and another number of publications are saying that 1/3 to half the folks that used to work in an office environment will no longer be doing such in the future. So I think we will continue to see an incredible number of people using our multi-use trails and sidewalks. On the West River Trail realignment, that's the area that washed out last year during the floods. Good news and bad news. Good news is $600,000 are being used presently by the MAPS 3 Subcommittee for Trails and Sidewalks to repair that. And that work should be completed by May of this year. The bad news is it has taken months and months to get this problem solved. And I would love to see our city adapt programs in the future that would repair the damage that can come upon our sidewalks and our multi-use trails and restricted bike lanes. Because Mother Nature, as we know, certainly plays some very, very bad cards on us. Any other comments from the board? Next would be comments from staff. Any comments from our staff? Thank you. Next, 6C, comments from citizens. Mickey, are there any citizens that wish to be heard?
I am not aware of anyone that has signed up to speak, Chairman.
All right, very good. Well, that brings us to the adjournment. I'm not sure if I know the meaning of life, but I think part of it is gratitude. And I know we are all very appreciative of the work that city staff has done to function these meetings, to get this work done. Since we first started meeting, we've come a long way, and we're not finished yet. Also, great appreciation for the involvement of all of us on this board. Really appreciate everybody doing this, and enjoy the sunshine and great weather. We deserve it. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everyone.